Welcome back inside the vault on a Tuesday. It is the 17th of February here in 2026. I'm Bobby Trossett. My co-host and partner, Sarah Ellison, will be back tomorrow, and we will not start on time in all likelihood because of coordinator press conferences. The introductory coordinator press conferences are scheduled tomorrow at One Winning Drive in Baltimore, set for an 11 a.m. start time. So Sarah and I will be with you as soon as possible and give you an instant reaction. So just mark your calendars accordingly. Coming up ahead of tomorrow's show, if you could on the way in, please like the video, subscribe, hit that notification bell, consider becoming a channel member or a gift-giving membership. We'll get to as many super chats as we can as and when or if they come in. And thanks to Primary Residential Mortgage for the continued support of our program. At the end of this month, as we have for the last several months, we are doing a random giveaway, a $100 gift card. It's not to Fanatics. This first month is what we're rolling out in the form of the Vault merch line gift cards, $100 gift card up for grabs. So if you want to go ahead and grab a head start on that process and that giveaway, you can follow the instructions accordingly. We have it pinned in our live chat right now, and we also have it in the show notes. I'll tell you more about that coming up in just a bit. Femi Ayambadejo will join me in a little under 30 minutes time. Looking forward to having the former Super Bowl winning Raven on the program, friend of the show, and we're going to talk about a number of things. But I begin today with Daniel Jeremiah's latest mock draft. That's Mock Draft 2.0, NFL Network analyst. Of course, he is a former Ravens scout, and he had a specific wide receiver who I feel like whenever that position is named in the first round, linked to the Ravens, comes with a level of intrigue and interest. And this wide receiver out of Arizona State is not the first at his position to be linked to the Ravens early on in this pre-draft process, if you will, when it comes to creating mocks. So I'll tell you about him, and then we're going to get into a slew of news, most of which is buzz, maybe some of which is even smoke as it relates to the wide receiver position and how the Ravens might go about their business, both in free agency and via the draft in the upcoming months for Eric DeCosta and his front office. Anthony Weaver, newest Ravens defensive coordinator, sat down with the guys on the lounge for his first interview since landing the job and made a pretty exciting guarantee. I'll have clips from that, including what he wants his defense to be about and embody in Baltimore. And then after that, we'll get to some quick hits. And again, Femi joins me in about 25 minutes time. I would love for you to vote in the poll, coming up on 200 votes already early on in today's show. And I ask you guys, which player is most likely to wind up in Baltimore? And so far, out of the four options that I gave you, Tyler Linderbaum via an extension leads the way at 68%. Bradley Chubb via free agency at 23%. Mike Evans via free agency is at 5%, and Tyreek Hill, released by the Dolphins recently, just to start off this week, is at 4%. Go ahead and vote. Make your voice heard. I appreciate you guys for being with me, and without further ado, let's dive into Daniel Jeremiah's Mock Draft 2.0 and who he has the Ravens targeting at number 14 overall coming up in April's NFL Draft. It is Jordan Tyson, the Arizona State wide receiver, and Daniel's write-up, if you will, is as follows. Baltimore is still in search of a complement to Zay Flowers. Tyson gives the new coaching staff more firepower on offense. I've been familiarizing myself with Jordan and his game all morning long, and in doing so, I found this from November, the great Steve Smith Sr., who had this to say about Jordan Tyson's evaluation.
Man, when I'm watching this film, right now I gotta get my notes, my handwritten notes.
I love it.
He plays so well. The first question I had was, man, I need to look up his yak. I just need to look at that because every time you watch him, you're like, oh, whoa. And he just, the biggest thing that I wrote in bold, he rarely takes the catch and falls down. I love the way he high points the football, but at times he does get a little high in his stance, right? The play against Texas Tech, ridiculous. and just smooth. He's a smooth route runner, but he makes it look effortless. I really like, and I think he will be high on some people's boards. But I think also too, this is the part where people sometimes want to just nitpick, and when you're spending millions of dollars on players or a product, you want to make sure you're going to get your return on your investment. And I believe he puts you in a good position. If you are looking for a solid number two who can possibly take over as a number one, or you're looking at enhancing your quarterback play by adding some good pieces, young talent around him, I believe you start off with Tyson.
Will the Ravens be in the market for a wide receiver 2 in the coming weeks and months ahead? Meaning, could Rashad Bateman be shopped? Is he actively being shopped? That all remains to be seen. But Jordan Tyson and Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft 2.0 is the Ravens' target at 14. 6'1", a $195. The legitimate measurables, obviously, will be confirmed over the next week or so at the combine, pro days, all that upcoming for these prospects. Started his college career at Colorado in 2022, transferred to Arizona State, where he spent the last several seasons. And by the way, you want to know who his wide receivers coach was? The great Hines Ward. Longtime Pittsburgh Steeler. He's been the wide receivers coach at Arizona State since 2024. So worked closely with Jordan Tyson. And of course, Hines, for those of you who have been following Ravens football for a long time, you know that he gave the Ravens plenty of fits over the years. But Hines Ward has worked closely. So 2 seasons, it was productive for Jordan Tyson, to say the least. 136 receptions, over 1,800 receiving yards, 19 total touchdowns. And as Justin noted here, he's got a chance to be the first Sun Devil drafted in the top 10 since Terrell Suggs in 2003. Now, if he does go indeed within the top 10, obviously he won't be in Baltimore. The Ravens have the 14th overall pick as things currently stand here. Again, a couple months out from this process really getting underway. And this is the pre-draft process. Free agency just weeks away. The draft just months away. And the scouting combine in Indianapolis less than a week away. I guess technically it's set to start on the 26th, but I'll be flying out on Monday for my second experience in Indy. So I'm looking forward to that. And feel free, as always, guys, to reach out to me via social media, via email, with potential prospects that you'd like me to maybe track down, find anything on while I'm in Indy from Monday to Saturday of next week. So certainly looking forward to that. But like I said, Jordan Tyson is not the only wide receiver prospect that's been mocked to Baltimore at 14. As we've covered in recent weeks, Field Yates and others have taken a look at Mekhi Lemon. He's USC's wide receiver. And as Jameson notes here, this ESPN statistic, and really just a Baltimore statistic, not one that the Ravens want to hold their hat on. Last season, for a multitude of reasons, their wide receivers totaled just over 1,900 receiving yards. That was 25th ranked in the National Football League. Now, a lot of that had to do, obviously, with the inconsistency on offense, the inconsistency from a pass protection standpoint, Lamar going down for a month. And obviously they like to use their tight ends as well. But Mekhi averaged the third most receiving yards per game in all of FBS play last season at 96.3. And this seems to be a player that's hot right now, that's trending upward, that could potentially be a top 10 pick. But again, it's very early on in the process. And by the way, just so that we're being thorough and keeping up with Daniel Jeremiah and his feel, knowing that he does have exactly that great feel for the Ravens organization, here's who we went with mock draft 1.0. Vega Ione. Vega, of course, is the Penn State guard And I know a lot of you have taken a close look at him. He's a mauler. He's a beast. He's a plug-and-play starter immediately, whether it be left or right guard. Primarily played left guard in college. And DJ, his write-up is this: the Ravens need to upgrade at guard, and center Tyler Linderbaum is due to reach free agency in March. Ione has a strong case to be considered the best offensive lineman in this year's draft. Will he be available at number 14? Remains to be seen. The question becomes, will Tyler Linderbaum hit the open market? Tyler Linderbaum is someone that is a coveted asset in free agency. Same thing with Isaiah Likely. The Ravens have two of the hottest names should or when they hit the open market. And might they find themselves in a position where it ends up becoming, a spending spree and a war that they don't want to partake in and battle in when it comes to keeping Tyler Linderbaum in Baltimore? That number could find its way to over $20 million per year. I'll have more on that in just a bit because, again, when you look at the free agency trackers around the league, when you look at where he ranks, when you look at just how coveted he is, pretty much universally believed to be a top 5 free agent that's just weeks away from potentially being available. So back to wide receivers, though, because that kind of dominated the discussion over the last 24 hours. We did decide to take the 3-day weekend. Hopefully you guys enjoyed President's Day. And when we did that, while that was taking place, as I discussed last night on my personal channel, well, there were several different things. Marquise Hollywood Brown, who just a couple weeks ago in San Francisco, I had the pleasure to catch up with in a conversation on Radio Row. He had a little bit of fun and popped on his Instagram story with a highlight walking off of M&T Bank Stadium field in a Ravens uniform, where he was drafted, of course. Eric DeCosta's first ever draft pick, by the way, as general manager in Baltimore back in 2019. Then Marquise is enjoying the start to his offseason. He's set to hit free agency, by the way. Spent his last several years with the Kansas City Chiefs. Prior to that, he was in Arizona. And we all remember what happened draft weekend back in 2022 when the Ravens did business with the Cardinals, got a first-round pick in exchange, and went ahead and drafted Tyler Linderbaum. Same round that they drafted Kyle Hamilton. How'd that work out for him? Pretty darn good. Years later, opted to decline the 5th-year option solely based on market value and cap and principal a year ago. And now we'll see what Linderbaum's future ultimately possesses moving forward. But Marquise was on the golf course with his wife, and he put up a caption, and that caption had a purple heart in it, which prompted this response on the Instagram story from Lamar, who's been known to have his own fun this time of year on social media. And Lamar captioned in reference to Marquise's caption, "Purple Heart means Hollywood to the Ravens." These guys remain close, as Marquise confirmed to me during our interview just a couple weeks ago. They were literally carpool buddies en route to M&T Bank Stadium, practices, you name it. They're both South Floridians at heart. And they had some success together. They won a lot of games together. And Marquise did leave, for what it's worth. He did leave at the end of our conversation, the door open, I would say, to a reunion in Baltimore. How legitimate was that? I don't know. And do I feel like there's a better receiver out there that would complement more so what they already have in Zay Flowers? I do. But I'm just following what's been going on. And what's also been going on is the fact that Tyreek Hill is now available. He's an 8-time Pro Bowler. The Dolphins informed him that he's going to be released. He turns 32 on March 1st. He's recovering from a serious injury back in September. Gruesome. Dislocated knee and torn ACL. Now he's set to be an unrestricted free agent for the first time in his career. It's going to save the Dolphins a boatload against their salary cap. And again, one of the game's greats is now available. there is a level of risk attached to this. And to me, that risk is twofold. Tyreek's checkered off the field past begs the question. And two, what will he be turning 32, coming back from a very serious injury? And will he even be available by the start of the season? He took to Instagram yesterday, and part of his caption, it was a long one. This is slide number 1, thanking the Dolphins, thanking the organization. Slide number 2, if you go to the bottom of the caption, it reads as follows. The cheetah don't slow down, ever. So to everyone wondering what's next, just wait on it. The cheetah will be back, born again. Where will he be back? Clearly, he plans on playing still. Will he go back to Kansas City, where he had a ton of success? Wouldn't surprise me. Eric Bieniemy's back under Andy Reid. Perhaps Travis Kelce runs it back. Or perhaps a team like Baltimore is willing to put up the kind of numbers that he will still command at 32. What might that be? I don't know. I did read something earlier on that something along the lines of 3 years, $45 million. I don't believe that's something that the Ravens would be willing to do, given their other needs, which I think we can all agree. There are other needs that are more pressing than wide receiver for the Ravens this offseason. At the same time, Rashad Bateman's future, perhaps, even though he's under contract, is uncertain moving forward. Zay Flowers is extension eligible. We don't know if they have any interest in bringing DeAndre Hopkins back, who's on the back nine of his career. Devontae Walker is on his rookie contract window, and he'll be in Baltimore for the foreseeable future. And there is a level of untapped potential there, I think we can all agree. But you don't truly know what you have in him in terms of his potential to serve as wide receiver 2 coming up literally in September. There's a lot of meat left on that bone, hopefully, and maybe he could be, but you'd want some competition. You'd want more within that arsenal. And then Tylan Wallace, of course, is set to hit free agency. So as much as I'm sure that some of you are out there right now thinking to yourselves like, what? There are much bigger needs than there are at wide receiver. And I agree with you. But that's not a position that you want to just ignore. They could get thin there quickly and in a hurry if they don't be sure to address that right out of the gate. Tyreek Hill, by the way, came up in conversation. Mike Florio had this to say about Tyreek and how he tied it into the Ravens was interesting. Not sure if I fully agree, but listen to this.
The Ravens. And here's the added benefit with the Ravens. Remember 2023 when the Ravens were in that awkward contract status with Lamar Jackson? What did they do? They signed Odell Beckham Jr. and they gave him like $15 million guaranteed. Like it was a number that no one else was going to pay, but it had an added benefit. It got the deal done with Lamar Jackson. Maybe adding Tyreek Hill is the thing that gets Lamar Jackson to sign the contract the Ravens would have on the table in lieu of pushing for something more. So they're going to be in play, potentially.
I don't know, man. You go back a few years ago, and yeah, $15 million guaranteed. You look at it now, just an astronomical number for Odell, given the production or lack thereof. You'd like to think that, to Mike's point, that did have a level of influence with Lamar, and at the time, what was a stalemate, right? That the drawn out, difficult negotiation that extension was between Lamar and his camp and Eric DeCosta and his front office camp. You'd like to think, the optimist would think that, a few years later, the framework, the trust, the rapport, that's the groundwork that's already been laid between DeCosta and Lamar. And you'd like to think, in a perfect world, that this time would be a little bit more concrete, that this time would be a little bit more standard. Lamar's essentially had 2 MVP seasons since he signed that deal. Lamar's won a lot of games since he signed that deal. Obviously, still looking for that magical signature postseason run. We all know that. And he's going to want to stack a good bill of health coming up in 2026 after dealing with a laundry list of nicks and bruises and issues physically in 2025. The Deshaun Watson outlier deal that certainly was a factor in the holdup a few years ago isn't as prevalent now. It is for Cleveland. They're still paying the price, literally and figuratively. But you'd like to think that at this point, years later, it should be a lot more of a smooth sailing process. But then again, there's nothing that makes that certain. There's no guarantee that that's the case. But you'd like to think so. As far as Tyreek Hill is concerned, I personally would go in a different direction. I would spend in free agency pending a Lamar Jackson contract extension, and I would take my swings, as Eric DeCosta often has throughout his time as general manager, whether it be in the first round or all throughout draft weekend. I would also be actively shopping Rashad Bateman. I think that would be smart of them. And while I think Bates still has a lot left to give, as he showed in 2024, he took a significant step backwards in 2025. And his social media antics begged the question, is he the best fit for what the Ravens need? Fortification, the consistency at wide receiver. Let's get an update on the poll. There are a couple wide receivers that I mentioned and included in there, both of which are scheduled free agents in the coming weeks ahead. And I asked you guys, as we approach 500 votes, which player is most likely to wind up in Baltimore? And Tyler Linderbaum on an extension, obviously he's not the wide receiver among these options, leads the way at 66%. Bradley Chubb, I'll have a slide on him coming up in just a bit, is at 25%. Dolphins pass rusher who will be released. 5% of you think that Tyreek Hill is a match for Baltimore, and 4% of you think that Mike Evans, Tampa Bay Buccaneer, would be a match for Baltimore. Go ahead and vote. Appreciate you guys for being with me. Let's get a read in here. I want to say thanks to Primary Residential Mortgage for the continued support of our program. And guys, if you're buying a home in Maryland, just know that the Maryland Mortgage Program, aka MMP, offers powerful down payment assistance and grants to help you get there. So again, down payment assistance, first and second time home buyer options, help for employees, caregivers, and buyers with student loans. All that and more. They got a great team located in the Towson, Maryland area. That's where one of their branches are. You do not need to be in Maryland, by the way, or in Baltimore to work with them. But obviously, if you plan on buying a home in Maryland, that's who you want to call. This is the number that you want to call, 410-663-2222. But primary is national. So again, you do not need to be in the Maryland area to work with them. But you can call them directly, wherever you are, at 410-663-2222. Appreciate them for the continued support very much. And as you see right here, we have a $100 gift card that's up for grabs this month. At the end of February, how many days are in this month? 28? 28. It's the day I fly back from Indy. So at the end of the Combine week, coming up next week, we will randomly pick a winner. And if you have not yet added yourself in for consideration for chances, hope you'll do so. Here it is. I'll go ahead and blow this up so you can see it. This is Primary Residential Mortgage's Instagram account. We have it directly linked in our show notes. If you're watching in real time, it's pinned in our live chat. And their first post that you see is pretty easy. How to enter. Comment on the post with the hashtag Vault. Tag 3 friends you'd buy a house with. Those comments are already starting to flow in from some of you. Appreciate you guys for participating. Follow them at PRMI Mid-Atlantic. Subscribe to The Vault on YouTube and turn on your notifications if you don't already. And if you want to go the extra mile, you can scan the QR code that you see on the screen right now. If you're in the audio-only space, just copy and paste the Google form link that we have for you in the show notes. It'll take you to a quick little 30-second fill-out page there so you can easily be contacted if you win. And again, we're going to announce the winner coming up later this month. $100 directly towards the vaultpod.com/shop. Appreciate them and appreciate all of you guys. Femi Badejo joins me in just a couple minutes here inside the vault. Sarah will be back tomorrow. Looking forward to that. And again, mark your calendars accordingly at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, coming up on Wednesday the 18th. The Ravens will introduce their coordinators, and we will do an instant reaction press conference or an instant reaction live stream, afterwards. It starts at 11. So we won't likely be on until, I don't know, depending on how long it goes. It's definitely going to be afternoon, I would think. So that's what's going on there. Looking forward to it. Dreams writes, I think Mike Evans is old enough to be a Raven now. And Mike is one of the options that I had for you in the poll in terms of which player is most likely to wind up in Baltimore. Mike is 32, I believe, last time I checked. He'll turn 33 this upcoming summer in August. He's been with the Buccaneers his entire career. He's 6'5". He's 231, a former first-round pick out of Texas A&M. He and Johnny Manziel had a ton of success together in College Station. Just a ridiculous start to his career. He had 11 consecutive 1,000-yard receiving seasons to start his career. Just insane. You want to know who else did that? The great Jerry Rice. So I don't know if Tampa Bay is going to let really a career player, someone who is synonymous with the Bucs organization, walk in free agency, but I know that he's going to be a coveted piece if they do. And maybe, just maybe, the Ravens would consider doing what they've done much throughout their time as an organization in free agency, and that is pursue players at the wide receiver position that are past their prime. And I think Mike's still got a lot left to give. It's all due respect. I do think he's past his prime, though. Still doesn't mean he doesn't have a lot left to give. Appreciate you, Quion. Zayad is in the house, and he writes, the only way we draft Jordan Tyson is if Bate is traded round 1 to be wide receiver 3. Round 1 to be wide receiver 3. Okay. Zayad's calling his shot here for what he sees Jordan Tyson as. Quion is back, and he says Vega and Lindy side by side protecting 8. Need it. I think a lot of people could get behind that. That Linderbaum extension's got to get done first, though, in order to go draft Vega, the stud Penn State guard. Wes Hall is in the house, and he says we are thin at wide receiver, tight end, interior offensive line, interior defensive line, edge and corner, and our cap situation is weak. What the hell has EDC been doing? Wes, he's just getting cooking. It's early on in the process, very early on. And popping into the waiting room is the Super Bowl champ himself, friend of the program, Femi Badejo. We'll bring him on momentarily. Kobe Pruitt's here with us on a Tuesday. What's up, KP? Can we agree that Bradley Chubb to the Ravens is an obvious fait accompli? What is that Latin? Fait accompli? The familiarity with Weaver and the scheme and the cost line up perfectly. Add Mack and maybe a Franklin Myers for the inside, and we good. KP, you're a step ahead of me. I got a couple slides. I want to talk to Femi about it because I've got some Anthony Weaver content to get to in just a second. By the way, the Ravens looks like they just dropped an interview with Declan Doyle, so that'll be a part of tomorrow's program. The lounge is cooking out interviews right now with guys that are in-house. Anthony Weaver is who we're going to talk about right now. Spoiler alert. Thanks, KP. Ivory Smith says Tyler is what's going to please Lamar this time. Perhaps. Thanks, Ivory. And KP says, don't mind Hill if we draft D Boston, a.k.a. Bolden 2.0, a.k.a. Anquan Bolden 2.0. Thanks, KP. And thanks to all of you guys for being with me on this Tuesday. Sarah will be back tomorrow. Over 700 concurrents and counting. Something's up with Twitter. So Twitter streams are not firing off. So not sure what's going on there. But if you guys could like the video in the YouTube space on your way in or out, we'd appreciate it. Subscribe. Hit that notification bell. Consider becoming a channel member or gift-giving membership. And let's bring in the Super Bowl champ himself, friend of the program, Femi Badejo. Happy off season to you, brother. What's going on, man?
Man, I'm chilling. I'm in the chat. Your boy Thomas Blueprint running his mouth. I feel like I need to get on your Bobby After Dark show and have your boy Thomas come through and run his mouth in real time. You know what I'm saying? There's always people in the chat showing love, and then there's some dude saying I don't know ball, and I said that Mark Andrews is a top 5 tight end. Yeah, maybe 2 years ago I said that, but like, yeah, Thomas Blueprint needs to keep his mouth shut before things get ugly up in here. You feel me?
You heard the man. That's how we start the show right there.
Well, because Sarah's not here. Sarah's not here, so I feel like this is Bobby Baltimore show. I know this is the vault, but when I don't see Sarah, I feel like I can get a little more in the gutter. When they go low, I go to hell. I go lower. You know what I mean?
In other words, Thomas, consider your arse on notice, baby. You're just
putting. Oh yeah, he's on notice. He didn't think he's going to be seen. He thought he could hide. Nah, bro. There's no hiding. I see everything. I see everything, bro.
And that is the perfect segue to talk about the energy that you not only are bringing to start off this segment, but that Anthony Weaver is going to bring in his reunion with Baltimore. And we know that, and as you know, his first stint was as a player. His second stint was as an assistant, rose the ranks all the way to associate head coach, was passed on when it came to defensive coordinator. The Ravens went in a different direction. He obviously goes to Miami, where he spent the last couple of years under Mike McDaniel, and now he will be under Jesse Minter as the non-primary play calling defensive coordinator. He caught up with the guys on the lounge. I want to get your reaction to this in terms of the mentality he wants his players to play with under him coming up in 2026.
So I'm going to age myself a little bit here. But you guys remember the mid-90s Nolan Richardson Arkansas basketball teams, right? 45 minutes of hell.
Yes.
I want our guys, when they finish the game, it'd be 60 minutes of hell. Like when you played us, you're going to know, like you left the fight. And we're going to try to hit everything moving, fly around, play connected, play together, and just do all we can to make sure that you played in the game that was 60 minutes of hell.
All right, there he is. Words like charismatic, been there, done that, well-spoken, intelligent, you name it, come to mind when you listen to him. What do you think he's going to bring in terms of the physicality, again, his experience, and knowing that this is his third time through an organization? I'm sure he's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, too, knowing that he was a finalist for this job, Fem.
Yeah, I mean, he almost sounds a little bit like Vader when he's talking. He's got that bass in his voice, you know what I mean? The thing about Anthony Weaver that I really love is that he was born and bred in this culture. Like he understands what it means to play like a Raven. He understands the intensity. He probably recognizes that we got away from it a little bit last year, and we know why. And so I think that there has been a bit, when you go through the full spin cycle of coaching and coaching opportunities, and you come back to where it started, there is a passion and a reflective kind of, man, I didn't know if I was ever going to get back here, but now I'm back and I know what it means to be here. Like part of who I am comes from this environment and this culture. And I can't wait to put my thumb on the scale. That's what I hear when I hear him speak. And he's watched a lot of Ravens film. I think that with Jesse and him combined, there are some things philosophically and technique wise. I thought Rod did a great job explaining the way the corners play outside and kind of that upfield shoulder and that technique and what he doesn't agree with it. I think there's going to be a lot of examples of that are going to be enacted across this defense. And so this is his chance to kind of, I think, rectify and remind who he is, where he comes from, and that he remembers and he knows what it's supposed to look like. And he gets to do it in a place that he has a lot of love for. So I'm excited to see him get his opportunity to coach these men. And I think behind closed doors, there's going to be things that he does and the way that he speaks that we're not, it's going to bums me out that we're not going to get to hear it, because I think it's going to be so impactful for these guys, because this is going to be a voice they haven't had, or a voice they probably haven't had in a while.
was going to say that defensive line's in desperate need of somebody that played the position at a high level the way that Anthony did, leading it, and that's exactly what's going to happen here. You're about to listen to another snippet here of how he addressed the elephant in the room, and that has been, the epidemic and the inability to consistently close out games, which ultimately, as Steve Bisciotti said last month, was one of the decisions, one of the factors that led to his decision in firing John Harbaugh after 18 years. The second part of this that I snipped together was his discussion about pass rush. And we know how important that's going to be coming up in 2026, whether it's manufacturing pass rush, producing pass rush, developing pass rush, or really everything under the sun in between. Here are those two answers.
Things where you're going to address it and you're going to talk about it, but the only way you're going to fix it is just through repeated everyday action, right? And we just got to make sure we finish. And I think as long as we're doing that, right, and we're going in mindset, we're going to finish every meeting, every rep at practice. Eventually, that just becomes who you are, and you'll carry that in those games. And then from a situational standpoint, we'll be so locked in what we need to get done at those particular points in the game that it'll become habitual. And when we're in it, we won't feel that pressure. We won't rise to the occasion. We're just going to be what we are, which will be plenty good enough.
One thing that could certainly help in that regard is being able to affect the quarterback.
Yeah.
You and I have talked about that a lot. And when you were here previously, you had some defensive fronts that could get after the quarterback.
Yeah.
And that was really a calling card. How do you go about trying to manufacture that? Of course, look, everybody would love to have a Myles Garrett type outside linebacker guy that can get after the quarterback. But how do you go about trying to manufacture a defense holistically that can get after the passer?
Yeah, well, first, I believe in the guys we have.
Yeah.
Right. If one-on-one situations are presented, I know we have the guys with a skill set to go out there and win. Two, I think schematically, you're always trying to attack protections and manipulate space, right? And I've always thought that was one of the things that I see and can do well. So I think the combination of those two things, and then some of the ideas that I know that this staff is going to bring, just because of the intellect that we have, we're absolutely going to be to affect the quarterbacks. Because ultimately, that's what you have to do in this league. They're all too good. They're protected by the rules a little bit. All right, so you have to make sure that you can get after the quarterback, whether that's with a sim pressure or pressure, but most of the time with your four-man rush.
Attack protections and manipulate space. When you were just talking a couple minutes ago, you almost referred to like the intellect, to use Anthony's words, the intellect of this new staff that's coming in with a level of rejuvenation, or to use Jesse's father, Rick Minter's words in one of his recent interviews, cutting edge. Like, doesn't that pop off the page at you listening to that? And by the way, somebody that just became available who could potentially bring a level of that expertise to an edge for Anthony Weaver's defensive line is the guy that's up on the screen who just became available. It's Bradley Chubb. There's been some smoke and buzz around his name connected and linked to the Ravens in recent years around the deadline. So, one, your reaction to Anthony talking about, two really important things, trying to get over what's become not just a narrative, but unfortunately a label, and an accurate label at that, referring to the Ravens and their inability to finish in recent seasons. And then two, obviously the pass rush side of things and how they might go about their business now that it's team building season, baby. You know it. It's that time of year.
Yeah. So let me start with this first, because I think it's important to recognize that we're in that honeymoon period, right? And everyone's going to be glowing and speak highly of the roster, but don't listen to what they say. Watch what they do, right? So let's see how they address the front seven. And my intuition tells me they need to go and get the best edge player that they can afford. They need to allocate dollars and say, at this price range, the best guy that we can get, we're gonna go get him. They need to do the exact same thing with the offensive line. Similarly, they need to draft the best edge guy they can find, or interior lineman, and they need to also draft the best offensive lineman they can find. I'm putting all four of these players, those resources, to two front seven players, specifically the D-line and edge, and two offensive linemen. No questions asked. That's absolutely what I'm doing. The force multiplier effect when you invest in the trenches trickles backward. But when you invest in the back end, the same amount of utility does not trickle forward to the front. You know what I mean? It doesn't work that way. Everything starts trench work wise, and it works its way out. Just think about the slope of a line, and up here is your offensive line and your defensive lines. When you invest here, all that benefit trickles downward to your receivers and quarterback and your linebackers and DBs, but it rarely goes upward. Rarely does spending $30 million on a receiver help a shitty offensive line, right? It just doesn't work out. That's money wasted. And I think that we got away from investing in the trenches, which is what's found us in this position. So just so you know, philosophically, how I'm building this team through free agency and the draft, I'm investing in 4 players, 2 offensive linemen, and 2 front 7 players, specifically the D-line. When it comes to what Anthony Weaver has said, I spoke to this idea of the honeymoon period. Look, he's a Ravens coach now. The number one thing that you don't want to do is start talking about changing rosters in the media. Like, these are conversations you need to have with players first, and then the media will find out after these things are executed. And like I said, let's not focus on what they say. Let's focus on what they do. And that's the right way to do things. Players, to some degree, probably don't even know exactly what's going on. There's probably a lot of stress for them. I'm sensitive to that. I've been in that boat before. I know what that feels like. Lastly, when it comes to Chubb is probably a guy, based on he had a really good 2023, right? And then he was hurt in 24, and he had a good 25, right? If you combine 23 and 25, I think he had around 20 sacks, 100 some odd tackles, and
here it is.
Yeah.
Right
okay.
Here.
All right.
Here are the numbers right here. Yep.
Boom. Okay. There you go. So 20 sacks. Boom. Hit that on the head. And 8 forced fumbles. 117 tackles. Okay. Perfect. So thank you for the numbers. I was looking at this a little bit when I saw that he got released. So he checks a box for me. A guy like Mafe from Seattle also checks that box for me. Right. And I love Vega. There's Bain from the draft who's out there. I just full transparency. I haven't did my draft deep dive yet. I'm going to wait till after free agency starts because I'm so excited about this roster building. And Sarah and I privately, and also maybe a little bit in the chat, you guys have mentioned some of the things that I've been saying while you guys have been on air. I think the Ravens could easily clear $70 million in cap space. I am without doubt making Linderbaum the highest paid center in the NFL. His salary needs to be somewhere between 19 and 20 million. If you look at who the highest paid center is, I think that's fair. And then I'm re-signing Snoop. I'm re-signing Draymond. I'm probably I know there's a couple other guys that I'm probably forgetting right now. I'm re-signing Jordan Stout. I'm probably cutting Justice Hill. I'm probably either cutting Marlon or I'm asking him to take a pay cut for sure. I'm probably going to leave Roquan alone. And look, the optimist in me and me reading the tea leaves, I believe Madubuike is coming back until I hear otherwise. So I'm not going to make any changes to his salary until I hear otherwise. Obviously, he put out a post. Yeah, go ahead. Who else you got?
Your train of thought here, but
yeah,
Card and Kohler. I know they're not going to be primary, type guys that are right out of the gate in terms of the pecking order.
Yeah,
but
look. Everyone, don't hate me for this. I don't think Pat's coming back, and let me tell you why. This offense is a 2 tight end offense that's based on making the runs outside zone, the lead plays, and meshing that with the play action and the pass routes. You need 2 pass catching tight ends to make this work. And Ricard, unfortunately, every time he's in, 75% of the time it's a run. This does not fit with the system. This does not fit with the under center stretch zone, 2 tight ends, prowling the middle of the field, taking advantage of the size advantage that tight ends have over the linebackers and safeties. So, philosophically, Ricard just doesn't fit in. Now, if they want to keep him and he wants to stay and say, hey, look, I'll take a pay cut and stay for our short yardage and goal line packages where you need a fullback. But even then, you probably don't need a fullback. Maybe he stays. And also, check it out. Ricard has been the warrior of warriors, but he's been getting beat up a little bit more and more every year. He's missed more and more time. And look, I've been that guy before. This is not Femi, the player, talking. This is Femi, the team builder, my GM hat, talking now. And that's why I would probably cut Justice Hill too. That's why I cut Broderick Washington is also gone. Yeah. And Bobby, I know I wish I had these notes in front of me. I wasn't sure what direction we were going to go, but I have a whole kind of vision board for the 2026 Ravens. I've done all the cap stuff. I've looked at all the free agents and all the draft picks, and I've deployed a whole strategy. Each strategy has different inputs, right? Like there's a different universe where we could live in where we keep some guys and get rid of others, and we draft a certain way and then we can draft a different way, which then leads to different free agents. But the beauty of this is free agency's first. So once you see what you do through free agency, external free agency, right, the exogenous portion, which are the players that are on other teams, as well as what you do with the guys that you have. Now, I want to keep Charlie Kolar. I agree with you. Charlie Kolar is a beast. He's a 10th rated tight end in PFF. Somebody might throw some money at him. But if they don't, I think we should keep him. If they aren't able to keep him, Njoku is the next number one guy they should go after. Njoku would be a dream fit for this offense, and he's a dog. David Njoku is a dog. I don't care what anybody says. This dude, man, like, if there's one tight end that I could get if we can't keep Kolar, and look, Isaiah Likely's not coming back in my book. Like, I don't even want to have that discussion. He's going to get 3 years, $45 million, 3 years, $40 million. Like, just let's not even waste our time with that. If he comes back on a 1 year show me deal, then great. I'd love that. But I don't think that's the world that we live in. And I know we can change all the inputs and have different scenarios for each use case. But the use case that I'm trying to go with, Bobby, is the one that I think is the most logical one. And those inputs are the ones that I gave you.
You just ripped it off pretty good, by the way, off the cuff. We're going to get to
I appreciate it.
Safety number 3 in a minute. All right, we'll get to that in just a second because that was one of the ones that was not mentioned. And from a Likely standpoint, he can only bet on himself for so long. This guy's been in the league since 2022. And while, yes, you're still left wanting more volume-wise, he's shown you that if it's the right position, if it's the right type of situation for him, unlike where he was drafted. Now, it was a great place to win games, obviously, and he's had some big moments. But we know when that tight end room is built the way that it is in a run-first offense, you're not going to be a primary target, and that's unfortunately where he's had to live. And then when you add that in with a total fluke injury on a one-on-one rep last summer with Sanusi, it's a perfect storm for Likely. I'm with you. I think he's going to get paid and paid handsomely. Outside of Lamar's extension, what you're seeing on the screen, I don't know if there's a bigger priority right now for this front office. And you already mentioned it. Can you imagine having to retool 3 different trenches positions on the offensive side of the ball? That's a tall task. And if Tyler Linderbaum hits free agency, as you're seeing here, not only from Ravens salary cap expert Brian McFarland, but somebody like Ted who covers the league as a whole, everybody knows that he is going to be thrown the bank. Ted's like, look, Linderbaum's going to make so much money. He's going to reset the center market by a wide margin. Brian's like, I agree. Anyone thinking he's getting signed for 16 to 17 a year is way off. I'd guess it's, as you just mentioned, I'd guess it's going to be closer to north of 20 million per season. Fem, this guy has been durable as hell. Talk about arm length all you want, hand side, blah, blah, blah. This guy gets it done. He is an Iowan tough, country tough type player who they used a first-round pick on. We all remember how they acquired that asset from Arizona. He's potentially on a future Hall of Fame track years down the line. This is somebody you do not want to lose, and if you do, there's going to be a whole team, whole group of people that are lining up for him.
So, Bobby, let me give you the worst-case scenario first and why we should be optimistic. When Ben Johnson took over in Chicago with Declan Doyle, they replaced that whole offensive line in an offseason. Look at what they did. I mean, they did it. They just did it. Declan Doyle just did it. So if we have to, which I do not want that to happen, I hope Thomas Blueprint's listening to your boy. Yes, we should not do that, Thomas. But 4 years, $80 million. Like, let's get it done. Like, that's what the deal is going to be. I mean, he's the highest paid center. It's a little bit of a discount probably because my guess is he's probably going to get 4 years, 82, 83, 84 at the high end if he ends up hitting free agency. I don't think Tyler wants to leave. Lamar definitely doesn't want him to leave. So for me, let's get it done. What frustrates me is when I listen to people that are journalists, that are in media, locally especially, and fans. Somebody said that Tyler Linderbaum wasn't good and they just ran with it. No, he didn't have a good a season. It's all about context. He didn't have a good a season as he did previously, but look at who he had next to him, right? It's kind of like that 2018 offensive line when Lamar came in. I think Marshall Yanda was hurt, but then he came back for 2019, and that offensive line, and we saw what Lamar did. His trajectory was already upward, but bringing Marshall back to have next to Matt Skura, I think Matt Skura was the center then. The whole O-line took off like a rocket ship because the right guard is a Hall of Famer. Now, your center is potentially a Hall of Famer, and that's not exaggerative. That's not hyperbole. And I know people are so pejorative about about Linderbaum's play last year, but he's still a top 10 center. Like, what are we talking about? He went from a top 5 center to a top 10 center last year. And in some instances, he's probably a top 3 center, but I diverge from kind of what we're talking about here. You've got to bring him back, in my opinion. Like, what are we arguing about? A couple $1 million between potentially winning a Super Bowl and having your franchise quarterback, maybe one of the best to ever do it in Lamar Jackson. You're going to put him at risk again? Haven't we already seen that movie? What are we doing? Let's not put ourselves in that position. Emory Jones Jr. is going to be a starting guard in this league. I believe that. Back to my original blueprint. You draft the best offensive lineman you can because your left tackle is getting older, right? You still don't have a right guard yet, and you sign the best guard you can at the right price in free agency. Sorry, you draft the best lineman you can, and you sign a guard in free agency, and you take care of the offensive line, and you have nothing to worry about. And then I already told you, you draft somebody at the edge or interior D-line, and then you sign the best player you can. And like I said, all this reinvestment back in the trenches is keen to our identity and the way that we want to play football. So this isn't difficult to me. Now, it doesn't mean the players are going to be available. It doesn't mean that the money is just going to, fall out of a tree and all these guys are going to fall into this, box of, we want to be Ravens, so we'll take this discount. I know that's not how the world works, but you do your best to make that happen.
Let's get you out of here on this. This is a pretty thorough breakdown here in terms of, free agency and the new league year is just weeks away. One thing that we didn't mention yet is safety number 3. We know that Kyle Hamilton's in Baltimore for the foreseeable future. They got that deal done. We know that Malachi Stark's in Baltimore for the foreseeable future on a rookie contract window. Alohi Gilman set to hit free agency, as is Ardarius Washington, who busted his butt to get back last year from a torn Achilles, literally in May. He sustained the Achilles in May, decided to come to the Achilles tear, that is, came back. Yes, he struggled in space, as most would on that kind of timeline from a recovery standpoint. Fem, you know how difficult that is. And yet, do you go in a different direction? Alohi has Chargers ties, meaning he has Jesse ties. Ardarius is a fan favorite, beloved in the building, a former undrafted rookie, has some big-time resume tape out there, hit stick, plays way above his weight class. He's 5'8", $170, soaking wet. What do you do at safety 3, Mr. GM?
Man, maybe neither one of them come back. You know what I mean? Like, there's a world that we live in. And look, I know how we all pull for the underdog, and Ardarius is one of our own, right? And I try to make it a point, Bobby, whether I'm wearing my analyst, fan, or player hat, that I never put fans through emotional distress by playing on their emotion and fear of losing a player that they love. Like, I never want to do that. But we have to have the discussion. I think you make a point of saying, look, like, I'm just trying to have the discussion. I'm not trying to mess with you guys or mess with your heads or your hearts, but like, so we just have to talk about it. Like, other people are talking about it. Let's play out the scenario. Let's talk about this, this decision tree of decisions. I personally like Alohi Gilman a lot, but if you make me choose, I'm probably going to go with Ardarius. I feel like Ardarius made more big plays when he was healthy, although Alohi came in and made some amazing plays with the small, number of games that he had. I'd be happy with either one, but I'm slightly leaning toward Ardarius if I have to choose. But there is a world where neither come back, and I'm okay. Yeah. And if that happens, I'm okay with that too. But if you force me to make a decision, I'm going to go 55-45 Ardarius. I don't know where you are with it, but that's where I'm at on it.
No, I think that's fair, and I tend to kind of agree with what you led with, that neither are back in Baltimore, and that's a bummer too, right? Because Ardarius had that whole issue with the tender a year ago. I know he was frustrated. He thought something maybe more was coming his way, and certainly his play warranted it, but the Ravens had to make, it's a business, they had to, and to your point, you got, when these conversations are had, you have to take off the fandom hat for a second and look at it from a GM perspective. And so they may have to go in a different direction there. And look, this is going to be an important piece, because I would assume they want to play Kyle the way they did Derwin in LA. And so who's going to be back there essentially ball hawking and leading this defense alongside a second-year player in Malachi, who, let's be honest, probably have played a lot more high leverage snaps. I'm not saying he wouldn't have at all had Ardarius went down, but Malachi played damn near every snap as a rookie last year. So
yeah, he did. Let me ask you just two short things real quick before I get out of here, because I want to just touch on it real quick. One of the things about Coach Minter's defense that I really love is the idea that they have calls that the front can have a call. You can have a kind of a blitz call and then a coverage call, and all these things can be commingled and interchanged. One of the other things that he does that I think is really important is the disguise piece. I think Zach got a little bit predictable in the long haul. He got a little bit predictable. But one of the core principles of Minter's defense is matchup zone principles. Do you remember? I don't know if you recall this, and I know that you and Sarah talk about it a lot, and then I also kind of share things. I always hated how we dropped to empty space and we didn't match up in our zones. It just left guys open all the time. Nothing pissed me off more than watching somebody drop to air. I'm like, there's nobody over there, bro. Why are you dropping to open space? That whole side of the field is dead. And I know you're doing your principle, but you got to drop to the closest man. Like, that's just how you play football. Like, that's not a new thing, right? And I just saw it over and over again. So that's going to get fixed. The other thing that I think could be a real out of left field situation is if, I believe it's Jeremiah Love from Notre Dame, number 14. If he's available at 14, this guy to me, and I've watched all the film, this guy is like Kyle Hamilton being available at 14 when we got him. I know they both went to Notre Dame. That's pure coincidence. If he's there, I mean, Derek has another year or two for sure, but like, this dude is a franchise running back. He can do all the things that Jahmyr Gibbs does. He can do all the things that Bijan Robinson can do. Now, I know what I said about how I'm building, but I'm just trying to get in EDC's head. And if you see him, if they see him the way that I see him, that could be something out of left field that could change everything. And I don't know how you feel about Jeremiah Love. I don't know if you had a chance to look at him yet, but I'm talking game changer, game breaker, like going to make a big difference for somebody if they have an offensive line that can run block. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Keaton, I'm glad you did. I got like a list of guys that obviously, as you just said too, like, once free agency, and I've already started just this week, really. And of course, in preparation for the combine, I'm flying out to Indy on Monday. So a lot of these names are going to be like, mental notes for me to go and either track down or watch as they measure up and test and everything else that goes down at Lucas Oil. But Keaton Mitchell's a restricted free agent, will be a restricted free agent. Like you said, and Sarah's mentioned as well, Justice Hill could very well be a cap casualty candidate. And we know that Derrick Henry's here for at least the next couple of years. But Derrick can't do it all. And you don't want him to do it all at this point. So you can continue to increase his longevity. That would be pretty, look, I'm old enough to remember, you go back to the second round of 2020, nobody had them going J.K. Dobbins, but they went, and it worked out pretty darn well, at least his rookie season. And I know the injury bug caught up to him. But I wouldn't put it past him, not at all.
Yeah, I think Keaton is solid. Keaton is going to be the change-up guy. Let's say there's a universe where you drafted Jeremiah Love. Keaton's role is so unique to Keaton. And by the way, Declan Doyle and the running backs coach, they will develop Keaton's full repertoire of route running. I'm talking about third down, medium and long, him running option routes, angle, fake angle, taking advantage of the linebacker, safety. I don't even care if it's a DB. Keaton is just as quick as any DB is, and he knows where he's going. My point is that Keaton has not been, his superpowers have not been fully realized. And with this staff, I think Keaton's going to be a real problem. I cannot wait to see it. Sorry, dude. I had all these thoughts in my mind, and I'll just go on for days. But man, thanks for having me on, dude. I really appreciate it.
Can you imagine though, like a complex route tree being formed for Keaton?
Because Jeremiah, and the thing about Jeremiah Love, if you guys get a chance, go pull up some Notre Dame tape of Jeremiah Love. He can run all the routes too, and he's an every down back. You know what I mean? So the investment in Jeremiah Love is a long-term investment to make sure Lamar can keep doing Lamar things with a back that is explosive. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be Derrick Henry. He's one of one. But in his own way, he could be a Bijan Robinson. He could be a Jahmyr Gibbs. That's how good Jeremiah Love is.
Yeah, and will Derrick be here for the next 3 or 4 years? You don't know.
I don't think so. We can write this down. I say Derrick has 2 real good years left, and I think that's it. And I hope it's 2. Because, sometimes with these running backs, I played with Emmett in his last season when I was in Arizona, and he rushed for just under 1,000 yards, I think. But after that, he retired, and then we brought in Edgerrin, and I watched Edgerrin kind of do his thing. You know what I mean? And so these things can kind of, happen all at once, slow and then all at once when it comes to an end. But Derek is special, so I don't put anything past him. And once again, just floating out concepts as to why a Jeremiah Love would be viable at 14 if he's available. I don't think he'll be there, but just don't be shocked if he is.
Yeah, and the easy way to like button all this up is that if we've learned one thing about the Ravens, as much of they can be poker faces this time of year, they will lean on their drafting philosophies, and it is best player available.
Best player available, yeah, for sure. Yep.
So,
right on,
appreciate you, man. Thank you so much.
Yep. I'll tell John I saw you.
Dude, I'm loving that. I'm absolutely loving that my youngest brother, Fem, are now gym buddies in Harbor East. There's nothing better than that. Thanks for taking good care of him, man. Great to see you.
Bye, brother.
Later. Former Super Bowl champ, Femi Ayambadejo, kind enough to spend a few minutes as he always is. And hopefully you guys got something out of that. And hey, look, the combine's coming up. So I will continue to reiterate, send me names, send me players, send me prospects, send me priorities. And I'll try to be, as much of a sponge as I can be coming up next week in Indianapolis out the 2026 NFL Scouting Combine. Okay, let's get to some quick hits. Here's what I have for you. Again, kind of along the lines of the slim chances that Isaiah Likely is back in Baltimore. Maybe a little hint, maybe nothing. Maybe just having fun. Maybe just showing at Mark the Great a little bit of love on Instagram. But Isaiah did, and this, of course, making its rounds on social media, seeing as how he could be one of the coveted free agents to hit the open market at the tight end position. He did like a comment from Mark here, asking him to come back home, bro. Look at Nelly right there, too. Nelson Aguilar in his comment section as well. We'll see where Isaiah lands, but I tend to lean towards what Femi was saying, and that is him getting the bag somewhere. Yeah, that what did he say? 3 years, 45? I could see that. Could totally see that. Zach Orr has landed on his feet, and he's going to the Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks. Inside linebackers coach. This makes complete sense. Does this not make perfect sense for Zio? Good for him. Good for Mike McDonald. Did not work out as defensive coordinator the last couple years. He interviewed for some other jobs, including Dallas. He had also been requested, according to Schefter, to interview for the Raiders gig. But he's joining the Super Bowl champs. So Zio lands on his feet. He was a great linebackers coach in Baltimore. They had a lot of success under his tutelage, and now he's going to have a chance to work with the Seattle Seahawks and go after a repeat, because that's what they're going to be on out there in the Pacific Northwest. And it was a classy message from him on the way out as well. This was from the end of last week. He tweeted, "Baltimore, it's always love from my end. Although the last couple of years we did not achieve our goals that we set out to achieve, I will choose to cherish the brotherhood, fellow coaches, players making plays, division title, playoff win, etc." And threw up a Bible verse there as well. Salute to Zio. You guys know how fond of him I am. And maybe you guys can relate, just not as the Ravens defensive coordinator. And there were a multitude of reasons as to why that was unsuccessful through 2 seasons. Best wishes to Zio moving forward as he joins Mike McDonald's coaching staff. And speaking of staff, the press conference for the Ravens' new staff under Jesse Minter is set for tomorrow, February 18th, 11 a.m. Anthony Weaver, Declan Doyle, and Anthony Levine Sr. will all meet and conduct a press conference. So Sarah and I will have our instant reaction. It will not start at 12 noon in all likelihood. So we look forward to that and turning that around as quickly as possible, as we always try to do here inside the vault. I look forward to that. Another super chats come in here. Ty Riggs, first of all, during the Femi interview, said Femi's cooking. EDC out, Femi in at GM. Yeah, he came prepared, baby. That was, as he always does. He brings it, which I appreciate him for. Steve Schapp says next time we needed both Femi and Brandon on. Yeah. Brendan Ayambadejo, the Ayambadejo brothers. Wouldn't that be something? I think I've had them both on before. This was years ago, though. Great dudes, great football guys, great family men. Appreciate you, Steve. And appreciate our patrons for the continued support of the program. Shout out Major Offense and Devin Conway. Appreciate you guys for all the support and consistency that you give us through Patreon. Patreon.com/Ravens Vault Podcast is where you can go to learn more about how you can support the program. And again, I want to say thanks to Primary Residential Mortgage. Hopefully you guys will consider dropping into the giveaway opportunity this month. A $100, not Fanatics, but Vault gift card is up for grabs. We will randomly give that away coming up at the end of this month. PRMI Mid-Atlantic on Instagram is where you can learn more. And again, all the information is right here in front of you. So Declan Doyle's interview dropped on the lounge. So needless to say, we'll definitely turn that around and probably be live on the Bobby Baltimore side of things a little bit later on. And as always, appreciate you guys. We'll join you tomorrow. Sarah will be back. Hope you guys are enjoying the start to your off season. If you could like the video on your way out, subscribe, hit that notification bell, consider becoming a channel member or gift-giving membership this off season. For Sarah, for Femi, I'm Bobby signing off. Thank you, as always, for spending some time with us here inside the Vault, Vaultrons. Talk to you soon.